told your friend you're not okay.
The room, usually filled with creative discussions, comeback strategies, and BTS's global plans, suddenly transformed into the most tense silence Hybe staff had experienced in months. Amidst the atmosphere, Taehyung sat with an expression that was difficult to decipher. It wasn't anger, nor sadness, but something distinctly different: determination. Inside sources said the meeting was initially to discuss some of the BTS members' individual activities, but the atmosphere changed when Taehyung said he wanted to add one specific point. Hybe staff thought he was going to discuss his solo project, promotions, or something similar. But they were wrong. Because what came out of Taehyung's mouth was far bigger, more personal, and more shocking than anyone had ever imagined. Taehyung stated in a low but firm voice, "There's something you need to know. It's about me and Jungkook. And this can't be postponed any longer." That sentence alone caused the three Hybe executives to look at each other, as if trying to guess the direction the conversation was heading. Over the years, Taehyung and Jungkook's close relationship, whether as best friends, work partners, or a duo that consistently captures the public's attention, has often been in the spotlight. But the fact that Taehyung wanted to address something directly to the company, and involve Jungkook in the context of a secret plan, drastically changed the atmosphere. No one dared interrupt. No one moved. Everyone waited. Taehyung began to explain that he and Jungkook had been discussing something for a long time. It wasn't just a casual collab, it wasn't a spur-of-the-moment content, it wasn't a quick surprise. This was a plan that could change the way the public viewed the two of them, and one that might influence the overall direction of BTS's projects once they returned as a full group. The plan didn't emerge overnight. It was formed from deep conversations, private moments, arguments, and things that had previously been kept under wraps. According to sources, Taehyung said, "We've decided on something. And before you make any other big decisions, you need to hear this." Hybe awaited the continuation with a mixture of curiosity and anxiety. Taehyung then revealed that he and Jungkook wanted to create a joint project that would not only showcase their close artistic bond, but also convey a message they had never expressed directly. They wanted something more personal, more emotional, and more touching than any unit project they had ever done before. But that wasn't what made the room freeze. Taehyung went on to say that they had already prepared the initial concept, the visual drafts, and even the music ideas, which had been formed long before they even spoke to the company. This isn't a spontaneous project. This isn't because the fans asked for it, or because the timing was good. This is something Jungkook and I needed as artists, Taehyung explained. At this point, several Hybe staff members began whispering to each other. Not because they objected, but because they hadn't expected the two members known for their easygoing conversations to be the most serious about planning something of this magnitude. To them, Taehyung and Jungkook's plan sounded like something well thought out, too well thought out to not have been involved from the start. Taehyung also made another confession that left everyone completely speechless. He said that for some time now, he and Jungkook have felt a constant urge to create something that would not only be a gift for ARMY, but also a form of self-expression that had been suppressed. "We've matured. We've grown. And there are things we want to convey together, not as individuals, but as two people on the same long journey," he said. Many assumed this would be a unit album. But according to sources familiar with the details, the concept they were developing was much broader than that. There were elements of visual storytelling, a collaborative format that BTS had never done before, and a personal message that only Taehyung and Jungkook could convey together. Hybe was initially surprised, not because they weren't supportive, but because they didn't expect the two biggest idols in the world to take such a step without any announcement. One of Hybe's top brass finally asked, "Why have you kept it a secret for so long?" Taehyung smiled a small, meaningful smile. "Because not everything has to start from the company. Some things have to start from the heart." That statement, according to those present, immediately shifted the atmosphere from tense to a respectful silence. They realized that this was not just an artist project plan. That night, one of Hybe's executives stayed late at the office. He sat in his office, staring at a blank file that was supposed to contain the company's strategic plan for the next quarter. But his mind kept returning to Taehyung's words, "Some things have to start from the heart." The phrase kept ringing in his mind, as if both a warning and an invitation to think more deeply about what Taehyung and Jungkook were trying to accomplish. Meanwhile, Taehyung slowly walked out of the Hybe building. The Seoul night air felt a little colder than usual, but it actually made him feel calm. He stared at the city skyline, as if seeking balance after revealing something he had kept hidden. Although he seemed relieved, one thought kept running through his mind: how Jungkook would react when he heard how he had conveyed everything to the company. Some time later, Taehyung got into his car and immediately called Jungkook. The voice on the other end sounded relaxed, as usual. "How was it?" Jungkook asked. Taehyung took a breath, then replied, "I did. I told you everything. Everything we agreed on." There was a brief pause before Jungkook spoke again in a slightly more serious tone, "And they, how are they?" Taehyung smiled faintly. "Surprised. But they listened. And I think that's enough." On the other end of the phone, Jungkook chuckled, not a big laugh, but a laugh that sounded like someone who felt a weight had finally been lifted off their shoulders. "Good," he said. "Then we can start." The word "start" sounded simple, but it was the crux of everything. Because this plan they were harboring was no small plan. They wanted to create something that not only touched ARMY's emotions, but something that reflected their personal journeys as two members who had grown together since their teens. A project that would reveal their dynamics, their changes, and parts of themselves never shown in any official concept. The next day, Hybe began an internal meeting without Taehyung and Jungkook present. They dissected each possibility that emerged. Several senior staff members warned that a project like this carried significant risks, especially since the two were the most beloved members of the current global generation. Every step had to be taken with caution. However, on the other hand, there was a creative team that saw this as an incredible opportunity to create something BTS had never done before. Some even said that if this project succeeded, it could be one of the most monumental works in the duo's careers. But Hybe realized one crucial thing: a final decision couldn't be made without speaking directly with Jungkook. They needed to hear his own words, to understand how emotionally invested he was in this plan. Because from the company's perspective, Taehyung's plan was already quite shocking, but Jungkook's stance would determine how the company would proceed. A few hours after the internal meeting, Jungkook arrived at the Hybe building. There were no cameras, no official schedule. He had come for one reason only: to assert his position. He entered through the back door, usually used for private matters. From the outside, he appeared calm, but the staff who saw him enter noticed something different in his eyes: more focused, sharper, more mature. Hybe finally realized that this project wasn't just a crazy idea. This was a new chapter they had to honor. And despite the risks, there was one thing they couldn't deny: when two artists as big as Taehyung and Jungkook are united, the company can only choose to support or lose momentum. After a long discussion, one of the executives finally said, "If this is truly from you two, we'll support it. But we need to see the full concept." Jungkook nodded. "You'll get it. Taehyung and I have prepared everything." And it was at this point that the story transformed from a mere secret plan into a major movement that began to shake Hybe from the inside. Because after Jungkook left the room, the creative team was called in, documents were opened, and one sentence became the foundation of the entire new direction. "This is Taehyung and Jungkook's project. Don't change the essence." Outside the building, Taehyung, waiting in the car, immediately turned around when Jungkook entered. Jungkook simply said, "Yes. They heard." Taehyung smiled in relief, this time deeper. Finally. And that was it. This secret plan was no longer a secret. It's now in the company's hands, on track to be something that will rock the K-pop world when it's released.